Welcome to the Red Diamond Wargame Podcast. I am your host, Major Kurt Locker Honig, and joining me today is Major Matt Evers. Major Evers is joining us from the 3rd Marine Information Group, or MIG, and was one half of the championship-winning team, Marine Forces Pacific Marine Information Group, or MFP-MIG, along with his partner, Major Chris Lau. Thank you for joining us today, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Kurt. Awesome to be here, and really appreciate what you're doing to get wargaming out to more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Please note that all opinions expressed are entirely those of the participants and do not reflect the United States Marine Corps, its units, or any other organizations of which these guests are a part. So, Matt, let's get started. Tell me a little bit more about your background and how you came into wargaming.
Yeah, so I'm a loggy marine logistician. My number one pick. I'm really fortunate that my community, my MOS, allows me to be part of the whole MAGTAF. So I started out in Division 27, went to the wing, Marine Wing Support Squadron 271, so did Imperial MEF, 2 MEF, Carolina MAGTAF. Got to go to the Army school, so I really got to hone my craft from the Army sustainers. And then got a different perspective on, how does logistics enable, the generation of our human capital, and what does that look like? So I was on staff at the basic school. Then I got to see from a higher level was the aide to Lieutenant General Imes, CGT Com. So saw that perspective. And then, went to command and staff, got to think deeply about logistics, wrote a paper about that. And now I'm out here at 3MEF, been here since last summer, seeing how the command element fights. So I'm in that part of the MAGTAF right now. Yep.
Very cool. And throughout all this, what brought you into wargaming?
I've been interested in games for a while, but I think it was when I got to Quantico in around 2020. That's when other kind of groups started coming online with wargaming, and I was kind of in these defense innovation circles, so I saw these things kind of pop up and got interested in them. One of them was Sebastian Bay's Georgetown University Wargaming Society. So I got involved in their monthly meetings. We even started online because of COVID. Brute Crew Lac Center was also coming in online, so got involved with them. And it just became something I became really fascinated with, where I was just able to pick up and learn on topics a lot better. It was a great social networking activity, just meeting new people and meeting new ideas. And then wargaming is just this confluence of all these different disciplines. Like there's kind of the art, there's the math, there's the history. And for me, that kind of helped blend all the other kind of interests I have too. So I just pursued a lot harder and got involved in different professional communities like Connections and Moores and some other things, Marine Corps University Fight Club. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying kind of the bow wave of wargaming that's happening, not just in the Marine Corps but across the services.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of ebbs and falls of wargaming throughout our own service history, in addition to
Yeah.
the joint sphere and everything else. And so I think what we're seeing right now is another rise, and I think it's our responsibility to help sustain that rise. You and I now have met Tim Barrick, retired
Yep.
colonel, United States Marine Corps. So he's leading the Marine Corps University's Wargaming Directorate. And directorate sounds really powerful, but unfortunately it's him, one Marine and one civilian. And the three of them are really trying to bring wargaming into Marine Corps University. So that's the Command and Staff College, that's Expeditionary Warfare School. They're trying to help out with the distance education programs. You also have the School of Advanced Warfighting and Marine Corps War College, he's trying to spearhead bringing wargaming into all those entities, but he's also trying to bring it into the fleet. And the best way that he's done that so far is now 2 years of the Commandant's Cup. So obviously you are part of the championship winning Commandant's Cup team. What was the genesis of that team and your decision to participate in the Commandant's Cup?
Well, I found out just because I'd been part of Marine Corps University Fight Club before. Like I did Top Tactics last fall
Mhm.
when they were introducing the new Orders of Battle in the Hex War system, that they modified again, and we ultimately used that for this year's Wargaming tournament. So I was familiar with that, and then I saw the announcement, and just the timing worked out with what I was doing out here. We're like, hey, I can do this, even if they're, if we got to go to if we do make it to the finals. Um, but yeah, I was trying to find a partner because couldn't really find somebody out here, that was as committed. But then I saw the free agent list, and I recognized the last name Lau, because him and I had been in a whole bunch of different online wargaming communities, like maybe for the past year. And so I reached out to him, and yeah, because he's a maritime space officer, he's in a MiG, one MiG.
Mhm.
So I'm like, hey, I'm in a MiG as well. I'm in the MEF support battalion, but I'm still in the MiG. So I reached out to him, asked him if he wanted to team up, and yeah, I got a great partner, because yeah, the both of us just clicked, got along well, and performed well to get to the finals, and then take it home.
Yeah, and I know the 13th MU commander, Colonel Stuart Glenn, would disapprove of this, but you obviously had the most significant uniforms out there as well. You're representing your Marfor Pack MiG shirts, and I mean, as much as the 13th MU did a great job making some great team shirts, you guys probably took the cake on that one.
Yeah, so I know Dave Serrano. He's actually headed out here. Him and his wife Lauren. And yeah, I think he was shocked where he thought he would have been the only ones, and we took it a step further.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great. It really kind of highlights the spirit of competition and excitement that
Yeah.
Commandant's Cup really brought. How was the experience of the finals overall?
Oh man. I mean, me, I was. It was a nail biter. Yeah, I was a little nervous. You know. It was. Yeah, it was a tough fights down to the end. Like every point mattered, and there's some pride on the line. Um, and even though I was in the zone and kind of playing these games, I did feel a little bad because you know when I was in DC, I'd go to a lot of different conferences, and it's kind of like a mini reunion where you meet your people again. Folks working in business development, and academia, and industry, and retired Marines and all this other kind of stuff. And they were there at Modern Day Marine, and they go peek over at the Objective One Wargaming tournament, and we just didn't have a chance to say hi because like the clock was on, and decisions had to be made.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm glad for all those folks stopping by and checking out the tournament. It just shows the level of interest in support, for the practice.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's exciting that this is being held at Modern Day Marine. You get a lot of Marines from all different levels within the service itself, getting to kind of see, hey, what's going on over here. And we're next to the drone center, so you're seeing some experimentation with drones going on. You can hear
Yeah.
some speeches going on in the background, and a lot of people are getting to walk by the Objective One Wargaming Pavilion and they're seeing this level of competition. They saw us playing three different games. So
Mhm.
just on from the outset, what was your favorite game to play during the Commandant's Cup?
I think I personally like Joint Tactics Arena
Mhm.
the best. I think with the tabletop games, I think it's actually a little more challenging than digital games
Mhm.
because the digital games don't allow you to like break the rules. For example, like you click an input and then it limits the options that you're able to do, or you click on a unit or a hex and it will light up like the range or the distance or the line of sight for you. But with a tabletop game, it doesn't do any of that. You have to keep all of that in your head. So I think I personally like it more because, head to head, face to face, it's a battle of, how many systems and things can you keep in your brain while you're actively trying to play. And it's good to have a facilitator there as a backstop to make sure the
Mhm.
rules are being executed correctly. But even the rules, like with a tabletop game, I think there's a certain finesse in how they design these models, these combat models.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's not, for me, it's not just an understanding of like the rules, like you can't do this or you can't do that, but like trying to understand how the designer modeled it this way.
Mhm.
Because the tabletop game has this challenge where you don't want it to be too chunky. Like we actually have to play. The advantage the digital models have is they do all the bookkeeping on the back end.
Mhm.
Um, so I think there's a higher level of effort into figuring out how does this model work that's realistic and credible and acceptable on the table. So I've played more of those games, and because of what I just said, I think that I find them like more challenging
Mhm.
and more personable because we're looking at each other across the table
Yep.
instead of staring at computer screens with each other.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of like a poker element there. But for all those reasons, that's why I think Joint Tactics Arena was the best. And if we're coming to an in-game tournament like Modern Day Marine, I wish we would have more time to do more of the tabletop,
Mhm. Mhm.
and maybe we condense the digital versions, or if we've got a longer like prelim cycle, we can go heavier with more games or more hours on the digital side, but try to maximize more of the in-person tabletop at Modern Day.
Yeah, and I definitely take your point. I thoroughly enjoyed Joint Tactics Arena. That was I felt really bad. I was really hopeful that I could sneak my way into the final four so that I could have another turn because I finished playing that game after our 3 hours were up, and I immediately wanted to try again. I was like, no, I didn't.
Right,
I didn't like the
right,
decisions I made. I want to try again. Let's reset and do this. Didn't
right.
get that opportunity, and I think that's too bad. Um, I would love for more round robin, but that's a huge time consuming challenge in terms of the tabletop, the
Yeah,
necessary facilitator being able to make sure that the spirit of the game is being followed through all the different decisions
yeah,
that we're making. Um, and it's a unique challenge too because right now Joint Tactics Arena is not available for publication. So that's
right, right.
none of
Yeah,
us, with the exception of competitors from previous years who have like a pre-beta version of the game,
yeah,
would have the ability to play test it, to keep trying new and
right.
interesting ideas. So there's the novelty of the game was really valuable for the tournament. I am
Yeah,
hopeful that we continue to play and let the novelty wear off a little bit because I think it'll speed up the game. And I think
yeah,
that'll allow
absolutely.
some more, instead of just finishing at 3 hours, we're able to get past three turns, maybe even a fourth turn, if the competitors kind of know the flow of the game and there's not as much hesitation for making choices.
Right, exactly. I mean, and we can reduce some of that learning curve by digitizing it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think a game like that should be done with a facilitator. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't recommend digitizing it to using it for the prelim tournament, but I think as a way to like to learn the game, and then experienced people that don't need a facilitator can play that one-on-one together online. The Marine Corps University is already doing that for a similar game,
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian Bay's Littoral Commander game,
Yep.
and even the origin game of what Joint Tactics Arena was based on was a modified version of the Operational Wargame System (OWS) by Colonel Barrick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even digitized that
Yep.
into DigiCat. So
Yep. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to actually play that, and that's quite the it's fascinating to feel OWS, which can feel like a very long, like you take a whole day to play one day turn. it feels like sometimes.
Right.
Because there's just so much that goes on. In Digicat, we were able to play multiple turns in a 40-minute window, and excuse me, the window wasn't 40 minutes, 40 minutes of playtime between you and your opponent. So within 3 hours, you've gotten effective back and forth. You've made it through multiple turns. You've actually been able to see a course of action play out in a scenario, as opposed to you feel like you might get bogged down into some of the small pieces. But that being said, I really enjoy keeping a tabletop game in the Commandant's Cup. I think it preserves a little bit of integrity towards wargaming
Yeah.
overall, where now you're not hiding behind digital game mechanisms, because we ran into a little bit of that with Company Commander Modern. What was
Yeah.
your experience with Company Commander Modern?
I mean, kind of similar to everyone, where it is easier for blue to win based on the order of battle because blue's just getting a lot more organic precision fire mediums, OPF mediums, so loitering munitions that have a decent range and a decent payload. You can just launch an overwhelming amount of them,
Mm,
resupply, launch again, and yeah, you're not going to receive a counterattack. There's no need to maneuver. It's kind of like naval warfare on land. It's kind of salvo equations. So I know that puts some people off, but I don't know. It's kind of like the future warfare and kind of the future technology that's available. And I mean the game did have other features where you could mitigate those effects. So, I think maybe if they modify the order of battle for red, that it can be more balanced. But some games like they don't need to be balanced. You know.
yeah, absolutely. The whole premise of we played the force builder scenario, right? So we
Yeah.
had a we had a currency of points, 250 points from which to build our forces. And by the time I was done constructing blue, I don't think I got 250. I probably got 247 or 249. But
Yes.
I also had an F-35 strike. I had, my rotors that I was able to keep in my back pocket, and I had as many JLTV OPFM generating vehicles as was
Right.
possibly allowable,
Yeah.
and HIMARS off the map, by the way. So
Yes.
between
Yeah.
all of those
HIMARS are good.
assets, it just
Yeah.
became this like overwhelming precision fires capability. And the irony was for me on the red side, I was actually having to shortchange. Like I didn't get anywhere close to 250. I think I barely broke 200 because there wasn't a way to mass some of the specific equipment that I wanted.
Right.
So I think that was kind of the default there, where there was an anti-air asset, but I could only have one of them, and that felt very.
Right.
Uh, it, it advantaged blue a little bit too much. And so where I was excited to see like an opportunity to have multiple of those at a sacrifice of say infantry fighting vehicles
Right.
or a fixed wing anti-air asset, right? Like if I recognize that I'm fighting a drone fight, I would make changes that we weren't afforded in the game.
Right. And part of this may be the scenario setup, because the scenarios are the victory is largely driven strictly by attrition. You reach a certain percentage. There's an element of holding certain objectives, but they really become irrelevant because it's just easier to go for the attrition aspect, at least for blue. So maybe modifying the scenario, and then like you said, being have some more flexibility with the red task organization. I think would help, and then I think it's something where maybe we've got to reassess the technical quality of the model of how strong or effective um, these certain units and weapon systems are, because maybe we're simulating it a little bit off. For instance, in the finals we played with a Russian order of battle instead of a PLA order of battle,
Hmm.
and the Russians fared a lot better. Even modifying some of the restrictions on blue. Blue could effectively um, create kind of the same task organization in the prelims where you could get a lot of OPF mediums, but the Russian equipment was a little more effective at having staying power, along with its indirect fires. And you know, I don't know if we're actually assessing red accurately, especially as technologies changing pretty rapidly.
It's an inherent challenge on Hex War and Code Graphics, like Code, or excuse me, Code Wizards. You know, they have a really difficult challenge where they have to keep abreast of what's going on technology wise, and
Yeah,
then when they do see examples of its use in the field, if it's of its use in conflict, they're going to have to make those adjustments, and that's challenging. I mean, just between Top Tactics, which a couple of other guests have talked about before as well, um, the the order of battle has been a little bit different. Like we played the
right,
version 8 of the USMC. This is on the blue side. Version
right,
8
right.
of what they think an infantry company would look like, and that was not, I think it was version 5 or 6 during Top Tactics. So they are constantly trying to figure out what
Yeah,
exactly the correct version might turn out to be. I mean, on the PLA side, there was even a version where it was a pure tank. I mean, they call it a tank company, but that was an excessive number of tanks. You could max out on tanks at the sacrifice of everything else. It was not a great way to go, but it was a choice that you were afforded the opportunity to make.
right. Yeah, I mean, on the red order battle, and even for both PLA and Russians, I think the EW is
Hmm.
either not there. I don't. It's not there at all on the red side, so it should be there and it should be stronger.
Hmm.
Um, People don't realize, like, if you actually like read the log, um,
Yes.
the blue EW. I mean, it doesn't seem like it does anything. You just have this unit there, and you can't
Hmm.
really like shoot with it or do anything with it. But just the fact of it existing on the
Yeah.
battlefield, it creates these actually these big modifiers on
Hmm.
the probability of kill against you. Um, so I mean, I just think Red should have access to that same capability. I think they would. And the drone depth and the drone effectiveness, I think should be modified on Red.
Yeah, I would agree that the drone effectiveness was a little. The percentages would indicate that they were the same, but the actual, whether it's the modifiers and they're sneaking a modifier in there that I didn't catch whenever I tried to figure out why I could hit something with like four of their OPFM equivalents and get nothing, a CH901 would just not touch anything. And it would get a little frustrating. It's like I can't understand what I'm doing differently. Is it just that there's an
Right.
EW asset out there? That shouldn't completely negate it. Like at some point, there should be an accumulative level of chance that I've hit this thing 4 times. One of these things with 50% probability, I should have killed this thing twice by now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I also promised I wouldn't blame the dice, right? Like the dice are not going to be the reason why I didn't win. Even though in Joint Tactics Arena, I never held the initiative once. In all 3 turns, I never got to have the initiative, and I
Right.
felt
Well,
like that was detrimental.
so I tell you what. Yeah. I mean. Yeah. The initiative. I don't know how much it matters in JTA. I've been on both sides of that,
Hmm.
but man, my second match against the Polish cadet.
Hmm.
First half of the match, man, just constant misses.
Yeah.
Um, the the thing I was getting out of it though was I was trying to soak up his air defense. So,
Sure.
um, but yes, I should have had more kills. But you know, I think overall, the way I was playing it, it didn't quite matter with all those misses. But it was a funny story though from the tournament. Like, um, I roll and finally I get a hot roll. And it was when General Tracy was like
Nice.
walking around and had like come up to the table. And so I called it out. I was like, "Hey, you're good luck, sir. I'm finally hit, finally rolling hot." And then he said, "Oh, that's awesome." And then I was like, "Hey, you might have to stick around, sir, because I, you know, it was really bad the first half." And then he came up to me and he's like, "Hey, why don't you then rub the star for good luck?" So I was like, "Really, sir?" So yeah, so I rubbed his collar, pointed at his collar, and then he turned around and he's like, "Hey, make sure you get the other one," you know.
Look at that.
so, so I did, and then yeah, for the most part, I was rolling a lot better.
Nice.
The second half of the game. Thankfully, I had
Yeah,
enough missile depth, but
I
yeah,
love it. You get that stardust on you, man. And I do have to hand it to General Tracy. He's on my list of, like, if I could ever find a way to pry them away from the multitude of tasks that front them. I want to make sure at some point we get Colonel Barrick on here. I'd love to get
yeah,
General Tracy as well, because General Tracy, just that story really captures. He recognizes the value of what it is that we're doing. He is obviously an advocate for us. He wants us to be successful. So anything that we can do to help him, help his team be successful, I really do feel like we owe it to him, and that's why we're talking today. I think that's outstanding that he's contributing that way. He's letting some of that stardust come out there and really lift you up. It's awesome.
yeah. Yeah. I would listen to his closing speech again.
Hmm.
I was actually pretty shocked in some of his remarks, and in a very good way, where he equated the tournament like on par with kind of the traditional tournaments we've got in the Marine Corps, like the
Hmm.
squad competition and marksmanship competition and some of these other things that have been
That's
around
right.
longer. Um, but what struck me is, if he had to pick one, he'd pick the Wargaming tournament because
That's right.
he'd want the tactician, the strategist,
Hmm.
the deep thinker. He'd pick that Marine, and so I really appreciated his closing comments and his energy the whole way through.
Yep, absolutely. He definitely recognizes, and it's a spirit of competition that is going to make us better. It's one of the reasons why a goal out of this is to eventually grow wargaming tournaments throughout the fleet, whether
Yeah,
that's FMF or MFR. Being able to create an environment where we're able to pull the board games off the shelves, lay them out with facilitators that then force decisions at all levels, right? Whether that's
yeah,
Littoral Commander, whether that's Joint Tactics Arena, whether that's chess, right? And these are out of order, three very different levels of understanding of game mechanics. But all
yeah,
three do the same thing. They make you make decisions against a living, breathing enemy. And the the more practice we get at doing that, the better we will be at putting that marksman, right? The guy that wins the
right, right,
marksmanship trophy, putting that Marine in the right spot to do the most damage, right? That's ultimately what we want, not just us, the war gamers, but the commanders. They're getting
right.
exposed to these decisions in these scenarios. They're going to make the decisions that put the Marines in the best spot to do the job. So I think that's the end state of all of this that I would like to see, and I'm hopeful that General Tracy would agree, and that we're doing what we can to help out Colonel Barrick to achieve that. And in the meantime, we're working with Colonel Barrick's efforts to create the Wargaming Cloud at a Marine Corps University. That's probably on the digital side where we're going to
Yeah,
have the most access. So that's where we were able to play Company Commander Modern for the preliminaries. We also played the campaign. Excuse me. I'm always garbling this one up,
oh,
but the
Flashpoint campaign.
Flashpoint Campaigns
Yeah,
Pro.
yeah,
So Flashpoint Campaigns was already its own game, and then Flashpoint Campaigns Pro has added a couple of key capabilities to include what we got to play both in the prelims and at the Cup itself, which was an amphibious operation. So, how was your experience with Flashpoint Campaigns Pro?
yeah. So I think the Flashpoint campaigns pro, the contest, the Mew assault ashore. against a PLA cab. I think one, that is a great example of we're not just taking commercial off the shelf games.
Hmm.
Um, you know, because we've got a different relationship with that vendor, we're able to take that model. Flashpoint campaigns is more of a simulation, and we can tailor that to whatever the needs of the Marine Corps is. In this case, the MEU operation. So I'm really glad EWS is using that in their curriculum.
Hmm.
But reflecting back on Flashpoint campaigns, I think we've got to remember um, that you got to fall back on your planning basics.
Hmm.
Even all the way back from your entry level school, like on fundamentals like set conditions, sequence events,
Hmm.
because when you're playing the digital game, um, and kind of based on the scenario, you get so caught up in the buttonology.
Hmm.
And in that specific scenario, if you're playing blue, what I'm talking about is you're getting caught up in the buttonology to build your ship to shore plans.
Yep.
And then you're just launching those ship to shore plans without setting any conditions,
Hmm.
without identifying like, first ML MD identifying your NAIs, allocating ISR to those NAIs, then allocating your fires to knock out the HVTs. Biggest thing is like, do they have air defense? We got to kill the air defense.
That's
And
right.
then the everything moving surface is just so slow. You've effectively got to suppress or kill the enemy MLRS,
Hmm.
or you're just gonna one of your formations is just gonna take too much attrition coming ashore. But because of the buttonology in the game, I think people forget those like kind of planning,
Hmm.
basic fundamentals of planning, like exercise a little tactical patience and just execute those fundamental actions you need to do, press go, and then, see the reaction from the opponent and then counter react from there. For me, I did fell into a little bit of that mistake. Um, for one, I thought I was avoiding the air defense system. That
Hmm.
was not the case. And then two, and then two. So I made a bad intel assumption. So
Hmm.
I knew where you could where you could position your air defense asset. Part of it because Chris Lau had played that game before.
Yeah.
So I immediately sent the F-35s to go hunt and kill the YJ. The problem is that he had another, I forget what it is. It's the HJ or HY, the more advanced air defense system
Okay.
in another spot. So when my F-35 came in and tried to get the YJ, it ended up getting attacked by the other air defense system. So
Hmm.
I didn't
Hmm.
deal with any of them. So I had to get another sortie out, and that just slowed everything. And then I think he had adjusted his unit SOPs where the air defense was attacking ISR platforms.
Nice.
Um,
Hmm.
I think on the default setting, the ISR like flies like a little too high, so the air defense doesn't really mess with it,
Hmm.
depending on your track. So I lost my eyes early in the game, and then to be honest, I couldn't figure out how to gameism. I couldn't figure out how to launch the other ISR. Other two ISR had
It,
planned, and I ran out of time.
yeah.
So I was like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
keep playing. Like I'm
That
not
that
gonna
that happened to
stop.
me as well.
Yeah,
It's funny to get the insights of those playing red because there's a moment where red feels very underpowered in that it doesn't have any air assets. But at the same
yeah,
time, the objective for red is fundamentally a little bit simpler because you don't have to get from you like you don't have to get from ship to shore. You just have to get to the objective. And as
right,
long as
right,
you're protecting your assets, such as you have an air defense that is traveling with your tank or your mechanized platoons or companies, generally that's about what you can do. And then as soon as your
right.
own ISR assets identify that blue high value target, now your MLRS is just able to start hammering away at it. it's a little bit simpler. It doesn't require nearly as much time off the game clock in order to
Yeah.
issue out those types of orders. Meanwhile, I ran into the same problem where I had almost 2 turns where all I could do was hit proceed because I was out of time. I spent too much time trying to input all the commands that I needed.
Right.
On the plus
Yeah.
side, I gave them enough commands that they were able to basically fight out what I wanted them to do in the first place. On the
Right. Right.
downside, I misunderstood some advice given by some of the Matrix Pro Sims representatives, where I ended up spreading out my airwaves, which was not
Mm.
beneficial. So instead of getting a huge wave out early and getting Marines on the deck, only like 2 waves made it, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden the air defense was turning back on my list.
Right.
So it's like, man, I am fighting with like a third of the force that I feel like I'm supposed to. But 1/3 or a piece of that third did include my howitzers. So I was able
Right.
to
Yeah.
start, and it was really funny that my opponent, who was one of the finalists, he was like, "Man, I'm going to lose this game because I can't get past this certain part. You keep hammering." It's like, yeah, basically I've got one observer and I'm just it's on call. It's just going to keep shooting until you get past it. And he did finally get past it, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
it's a very compelling game, and that it extends the tactical mindset of Company Commander Modern, where you are tasking every
Right.
single piece on the board, to now you can only issue orders to pieces, and you have to make sure that those
Right.
orders, just like you're describing, and I'm looking forward to getting Lieutenant Colonel Eckert on here, because he started talking, at the beer garden, exactly what I agreed with his assessment, in that this is not an OSMIAC problem. This is a BAMSIS problem. This is a you start your planning, but then you have to arrange your reconnaissance and make your reconnaissance. If you are not following the steps A and M, you are going to fall behind in the
Right.
decision making cycle.
Right.
And what
Yeah.
I think we constantly learn when we war game, so much so that I think we forget about how important a lesson that it is. If you are making the enemy react to you, you are winning. However, if you are reacting to the enemy, you are losing. Like, that's a very real component that I think this game really does exemplify.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think, yeah, those kind of like planning models and those heuristics, like you gotta assess quickly and react, and you've got to have the right information to do that. But like you said about issuing the orders, or it's really about when you're playing the game, when you're playing flashpoints, you're not getting the immediate feedback
Correct.
of the act of your desired action.
Hmm.
And I also like how the opportunity where you're able to interject to give your orders, it's kind of off cycle from both red and blue, because it's based on, the effectiveness of your overall kind of command and control network. So I really like how they model that in the game. Um, and yeah, it does require an additional bit of tactical patience, because you're not getting that immediate feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the collection of games that we played Force Builder, Company Commander Modern, which was very tactical. That's a hands-on. You're moving every single piece. You're giving every single piece its task, and you're moving everything together to accomplish your objective. Whether that's securing key terrain for victory points or just destroying 60% of the enemy, it's pretty straightforward. For Flashpoint Campaigns Pro, you had you had the same amount of points available, and it just became who could either destroy the most of the opponent and or seize the objective, because it was the same objective for both. But in
Yeah,
this case, now you're not just pushing each piece around, you're assigning tasks. You're giving
right.
orders to these different pieces. So it's important for you to make sure your orders work together to achieve your objective. And then you grow that again into the tabletop joint tactics arena, where
Yeah,
now
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
a infantry company, it's not a MAGTAF. It is a joint force. You have armor, you have infantry fighting vehicles, you have Marines, you have your air assets, you have your strike missile assets, you have your naval maritime assets,
Right.
all of your air supporting. So now you're looking at everything in a very comprehensive manner. How do you employ all of these things to achieve your objectives? and the way you accrue points is not necessarily standard because you can
Right.
seize key terrain or you can focus on destroying certain assets.
Right.
Both
Right.
will either gain you more points or you risk losing some of more of your own points. How did you feel that comprehensive layer of thought worked for Commandant's Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I think having those three different kind of game systems allows you to experience those in different levels, like you described. I think it being a tabletop aside, Joint Tactics Arena, I think because you do have a wider variety of units at your disposal, and it's just it's almost a larger map because of the what's represented in the hex. Um, that yeah, again, you're getting immediate feedback of what you're doing, but how you sequence the actions matters a great deal. And then when you're finding that one opportunity to seize that objective at the right moment, um, that matters a lot more than than Hex War. And I think because of how fast it is, I think you get a little more out of it than Flashpoint. But there are some things that throw people off, like because you have two different maps. So you've got a smaller map for the naval fight, but those hexes represent larger distances. So I think some people can't they don't naturally make the connection, so they'll keep the naval fight separate from the land fight. Um, and then on the use of terrain, I think because it's such on the land side, it's such a close in your face knife fight that even though you're not seizing an objective, like seizing key piece of terrain really makes a huge difference in the battle and who gets there first. And I think by the second day, people were figuring that out. My opponent certainly figured that out. He did a lot better than me. I would not have thought to position the two air defense assets that we had where he did. Those were really smart. I was able to get around them or soak them up in other ways, but it really put me in a dilemma what he was doing there. Yeah.
Nice. How did you prioritize your approach in Joint Tactics Arena? Was it different each day, or
So
do you have
I
a uniform approach?
I did adapt after the first round with your teammate. Was it
Yep,
Tibera?
Tabera, Captain Tabera.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I adapt because I got a little more comfortable with the mechanics. But I was consistent. So the one thing I was consistent about, two things I was consistent about. One is I did it different because it's not explicitly written in the rules you can do this, but it is allowed. Where I would use my shore-based fighters to go attack maritime targets.
Mhm. Mhm.
Usually, people were using those to attack land targets or just to have cap up. And in the case of Tibera, I got lucky, and one of the missiles got through, and I sank a ship. In the case of my second opponent, I didn't sink the ship, but I soaked up his air defense,
Nice.
which is the only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to get his air defense knocked down, so when my navy then came in, they could punch through. Um, but the other thing I kept consistent was how I was using EW and cyber. So I was always using cyber on the air defense assets, which was effective, and then I was always putting the active passive countermeasures on what I thought was the most powerful piece, which was one of the naval ships, I think it was a frigate. For this scale of the map, frigate was I think the largest size. So I always put that on that ship in particular. So that was my survivable ship, so I could always ensure that salvo got across.
Mhm.
In case I wasn't able to strike first, I could strike effectively second,
Mhm.
because I would survive. But the one thing I did change was people were because of the other two games, people were very smart about trying to knock out high value targets early. So
Mhm.
knocking
Mhm.
out air defense and then long range precision fires.
Yep.
So I switched it up where this time I used all my ground-based long-range precision fires early. So that way I made sure I was able to get all those missiles off the rail. And then it didn't matter if they got destroyed or if I didn't have a chance to resupply them. I at least was able to dip into that salvo to free up my other assets. Otherwise, like if you wait too long, they just attrit, or you're only be able to get them off in piecemeal instead of all at once. So those are the two things consistent and different, and I think I think that made a big difference. So
Yeah, and one of the things I really enjoy about the game is that I think there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to employ that joint force to really make a difference. You can leverage a lot of effects in different orders so that there's not just a uniform. It kind of became simple in Company Commander Modern, right? You overload the OPFMs, you go and start destroying things that are going to prevent other things from happening. It's a little bit straightforward. Like I prioritized my drones to take out air defense so that my F-35 could start just picking off targets, and then my Hueys could come pick up what's left, and then my next wave of OPFMs would end the game.
right,
Pretty straightforward. You can't do it that easily in Joint Tactics Arena. Just like you
no,
described, whether you prioritize getting your strike capability off of the ships versus on land, because it's a lot easier to reconstitute the land missiles than it is
right,
the
right,
maritime. That's a
right,
component. But if you're so busy striking and your opponent decides to conduct air assaults or just start conducting brigade operations or heaven forbid a division operation, then now you might be falling behind the curve that way as well. So there's a lot of different ways to approach JTA, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's one of the
right.
more compelling games.
Yeah, and again, this comes back to how are things modeled? Like
Hmm.
JTA is an I go you go, but you only get each person's only getting one impulse.
That's right.
Um, so whereas in Hex War, it's I go you go, but when I go, I get to go with everything,
Everything.
right? And then you go with everything. So it that one that makes a big difference. I would say if I were to off on that aspect, I think the game could be more compelling
Hmm.
if so you have 6 orders you can do. I think it should be reduced to 5.
Okay.
Um, in part because that portion where after you do 5 orders, 5 impulses, and then you reset the turn. When you reset, um, all the units that you had uncovered with ISR, they get hidden
Let go.
again. So
Hmm.
you got to re-attack those with your ISR assets, which I think is important. And then what I would do differently then to account for 5 instead of 6 actions is so there's that regenerate or resupply,
Hmm.
logistics action. Um, so instead of that making like one action point, because I think you get 6 action points.
Hmm.
Some actions are like three worth of 3 value instead of a 1 value.
Hmm.
I would just make that value worth 0.
Okay.
Um, and so right it so I can still get my full 5 points, but I only get to choose 5 orders. It allows me to sequence that in a little bit better when I want
Hmm.
to. Um, and so I think it would give a little more art into how you sequence the logistics into your plan, because a lot of it is like a lot of what they did to set up, it's like automated at the end, where
Hmm.
after end of a turn, like you basically get all these things back. So for me, I think like there was no reason, in my opinion, to like use that sustainment action, even though some people did to get
Hmm.
certain things. Um, it just the to me the trade off wasn't worth it at all. So
Yeah.
I think I think they can then find as a loggy, I got to complain about that. So
No.
I think
You
they
know,
can adjust it a little bit. But
it's pretty compelling. It's something that I ran
yeah,
into because my focus in using that card was to regenerate my special forces, where
yeah,
I
that's
was
typical.
very
Yeah,
aggressive at
yeah,
using those. So I wanted to make sure I had that in there so that for every turn I always had special forces available. My
Yeah.
opponent did the same thing, except instead of special forces, it was all his land missiles.
Yeah.
So there was this weird moment where I had prioritized my SOF, and then I was just out of missiles for for like an extended period of time, and it's like I keep getting hit because he prioritized those missiles. Um, and it's just that's the nature of the die roll. I had prioritized my special forces so I could increase either with through direct action or the likelihood of increased probability
Yeah.
promote
Special
my
special
strike
reconnaissance.
against yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that only went so far. He still had enough regenerated missiles to then continue to prevent my strategy. So that was one of the lessons that I learned. It's like, all right, I'm not going to do that the next time.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to look at it. A zero value have it be
Yeah.
one of 5 cards. It's a compelling way to look at it. I'm curious to see what Tim's feedback will be because I know he's very close to slapping the table on the rules, and I'm excited
Yeah.
for him doing that because I want to get a copy. I want to make sure that that's available for anyone who wants to play it because
Yeah.
I think for another reason, then I actually think JTA becomes an effective gateway into OWS. So if I can get guys excited about the mechanics in Joint Tactics Arena, then when it comes time to teach them OWS, they're going to understand it that much easier. And so now we can more
Yeah.
efficiently start creating scenarios and conduct staff planning exercises where now we can actually play the game and then get reps and sets of the staff conducting planning instead of just arguing over the mechanics of the game. They already understand the mechanics because they learned it in Joint
Right.
Tactics Arena.
And I got it, on the top of my cabinet here. But Command General Staff College with the Army, they already did that.
Oh, you
So
got majors.
they yeah they Major's Gambit, if you're familiar with
Nice.
that game. It is kind of like a tournament style game like JTA, but it's focused
Mm-hmm.
on brigade combat teams fighting. I actually play tested this game uh, when the Sebastian Bay is one of his Georgetown University teams.
Mm-hmm.
CGSC was the sponsor, and they had developed this game, and so I helped play test it. So I'm glad now it's like it's part of the CGSC curriculum, but like you said, the way it's designed is the learning curve isn't as great. I don't think JTA is as bad, the learning curve, but like you said, I think once you play it once, like you want to get another crack at it,
Yep.
and I think Major's Gambit does that as well.
Mm-hmm.
How they model combat is a little bit different, but um, yeah, like you said, MCU's got to do the same thing and get a commercial copy out to people, out to units.
Yeah. The that's actually where I met Tim. Was over a game of Major's Gambit at Georgetown University during their Mad Scientist Wargaming conference,
Oh yeah,
their
okay,
Game On
yeah,
conference.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that
That's
was
great.
it's
Yeah,
like, man, I really want to meet Tim, and I got the chance, and they're there. I was like, hey, you want to play this game? Like, sure, Tim and I will play this game because he and I had never played it before, so it was actually
okay,
very compelling. It's on my list of games that I would want to have in the the ready locker, right? Like, hey, let's
yeah,
pull this
for
game out, and
sure.
let's play.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
compelling. With so on that note, what games would you like to
yeah,
see played in the fleet a little more? We talked about there's a commandant's reading list, and the commandant's
yeah.
reading list is broken out by grade. Should there be a commandant's wargaming list? Should it be broken out by grade? What games would you like to see on that list?
Yeah. So let me answer your first question real quick, just because of current events that happened. So
Yep.
last Friday, there were two great articles written. One was in SimSec by Jeff Applegate and Jeff Klein, where they talk about how to create this pipeline to create you know essentially every commander a wargamer, or
Mm-hmm.
every commander staff had wargame practitioners and apprentices. I think it's not so much like getting the right game or getting the cloud out to the service.
Mm-hmm.
You need people that are like war game journeymen, war game apprentices, war game
Mm-hmm.
practitioners, because it's more about like, um, you know, do we understand the craft? Do we understand the analytical trade? Do we understand how to build the models, how to facilitate, how to collect data? Um, basic statistics. How do we put this design experience together? I think those are all skills that need to be proliferated across the fleet, and then we're going to generate more games, whether they're educational, co-analysis develop, or really analytical. And I think it's also needed so that these formations can be better sponsors to the people who are making the games for them. Now, there's another article related to like getting this out of the fleet and educating. Ben Jensen wrote in I think Modern Warfare Institute (MWI) about let the generals fight.
Let the generals fight. That's right. Reading that the other day.
I don't know. My opinion on that is the generals already do that. So to some respect, so they've got, at least in the Marine Corps, they've got PME that they go to where they're doing that aspect in whatever kind of function they're doing, and then at least for the Brigadier General Selection orientation course, they do play high fidelity war game as well. I think it's more about, in my opinion, it's more about the colonels. You got to let the colonels fight. I think absolutely the AI staff models that Ben Jensen was talking about, but I think to make good generals, you got to make good colonels, and like it's the colonels who are directing these staffs and really got to come up with the phasing and understand the operational art and how to integrate these things. Otherwise, it's a huge detriment to the AOs or to the collective staff in getting the right information to the general to make the right decision. So, Marine Corps is a little different because we're smaller, but I think the fighting focus should be on the colonels. But that's the first part to your question.
Sure.
The second part on the commandants. So I really enjoy all these different games, especially the historical games, because it allows me to kind of really engage with the research or the analysis done by someone else, like in a different way. Because I can run through like really plausible like counterfactuals or see how events are nested. And so there's a couple of these historical, near historical books that are on the Commandant's list. So I'll start in kind of the heritage category on the 2025 Commandant's list as examples. So there's a Code Talkers book, a book about Code Talkers. There's a game. It's not about Code Talkers, but I think it's different because it's talking about, it's Coast Watchers by Volko Runke, published by GMT Games, coming out this year. But I had a chance to play test it, and I've been following its play test development in Discord. And it really talks about, the indigenous people in the Southwest Islands, how they were a part of this fight with the U.S., with the Australians, how the Japanese were on the ground, kind of trying to uproot these different organizations. And Code Talkers is really about kind of leveraging the SIGINT and your intel. And Coast Watchers, I think, does a phenomenal job at that for a tabletop game where it's more difficult to create hidden information between the players.
All right.
So I think that's a great game, when it publishes, that people got to get their hands on. We're talking about legacy and heritage. There's another book, Echo and Ramadi by Scott Hussein. I got to meet him like 2 years ago at the Fighter Bar in Miramar, and he gave me a copy of his book. But this game is also in Iraq, but it's kind of the newer generation. So it's not OIF, OEF. This is OIR. So We Are Coming Nineveh, Nuts Publishing. Brian Train is one of the designers, along with Rex Brennan's. Some of his college students actually designed this game. And this is like the 2016-17 invasion or retaking of Mosul against ISIS. And I think really good, and I think would be a good companion for that book, Echo and Ramadi, talking about urban conflict, multinational operations and just kind of the hellish aspect of that. There's a great way the game kind of models that aspect. On kind of strategy, there's two books: Active Defense, which talks about the formation of the Communist Party in 49, the PRC,
Mm-hmm.
or the CCP, excuse me, to today, how they've kind of developed. There's a game, Storm Over Asia by Bruce Harper, I think also published by GMT, where it's talking about it's like 36, 37, right before the outbreak of the U.S. getting involved in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
41, where it's talking about all this strategic posturing that Japanese are doing, the Brits are doing, U.S. is doing. I think the Dutch are involved in this scenario as well as the different Chinese factions. And so I think that's a great strategic game to take those two books together and kind of think about um, deterrence
Mm-hmm.
today and how do we do that in strategic competition. There's another book, Core Competency, where it's talking about Third Marine Amphibious Force headquarters in Vietnam. I think the best Vietnam game, Fire in the Lake. It uses what's called the COIN, the counterinsurgency like game system.
Okay.
This one's developed by Volko Rinke and Mark Herman, and phenomenal game. There's different expansions to it where you can dive more into the pre aspects of Vietnam, or then all the way to the fall of Saigon. But a great game, and seeing these different layers of combat and these different factions that aren't completely aligned. I think one misconception is people think the VC and NVA were perfectly aligned the whole time, and they weren't. They're
Right.
separate factions that eventually had more alignment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when you play that game, you really realize it. And there's great player notes. Like you're reading a book, there's great player notes, great research in these games. And the cards that they put in these games and the effect of these cards, there's a lot of research that actually goes into them and
Nice.
how they're abstracting it. So I think a phenomenal game people got to get into. On the innovation category of the Commandant's reading list, kind of looking at modern future war,
Mm-hmm.
definitely Sebastian Bay's Littoral Commander series, whether it's the new one, Baltic. I really enjoy that because it's got a lot more. The Russian JCCs are very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
as well as on the U.S. side. There's now an ArgMu capability in the game, and so there's a lot more things you can do with that, and you can easily transfer that over to the first substantion of the game, Indo-Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you gotta play that game hand in hand. Read Kill Chain. That's on the Commandant's list.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's another game. So there's Sebastian's is an interesting game because it it's straddling this space between like professional analytical game and
Mm-hmm.
educational commercial or hobby game. Um, and so the Brits have also picked this up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sapper Studios, James Buckley, he's created kind of a similar version of Littoral Commander called Battle Group Clash Baltic,
Mm-hmm.
where his model focuses a lot more. It's a smaller scale and it focuses a lot more on the EW and UAS aspects, FPV aspects too of
Yep.
warfare. And that game was built from a professional educational game that Vedat Consulting put together for the British Army. So I hope like more games come out like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think all of these are a use case where, and an example where you know you've got a book, but if you want to engage with that book in a different way or a little more, like you can find like the right commercial game available to get you to that on your own. Just with those few examples.
No, those are outstanding examples. I really appreciate a breakdown of both the Commandant's reading list and the various categories within it. And it really does showcase how war games really can touch all of those areas.
Yes.
Especially like some of those historic examples. I've heard, I'm familiar with some of those games. I haven't played enough. My shelf is bare. I'm still working on building that up a little bit as funds become available.
Yeah, it's
Um,
expensive.
yeah, it can be expensive, right? That's everyone's favorite joke about Warhammer 40K. It'd be easier to
Yeah.
have a drug addiction. It'd be cheaper
Yeah.
instead of buying all the miniatures. So those are awesome. I'll make sure to have all of those written out, and we'll keep doing what we can on both the educational side and on just the fundamental engagement side. Your point is very well taken in that it's a different approach to simply getting it out there for everyone and then making the kernels think, making the kernels
Yeah.
fight in such a way that can actually promote quality staff development. It's not just rolling dice. It's directional. There's an approach to it that's going to make sure that the facilitation always takes a direction that is going to be beneficial to everyone.
Right. No,
I'm
yeah,
really
appreciate the discussion, and once again, these are all my opinions. They don't represent my
No, absolutely.
organization or
None. Yeah,
anything.
that we're riding on our own on this one, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of excitement around what can be done. Just like you're
Yeah.
describing, people are out there making games right now, and it's
Yeah.
good. And the ability to get those games and that knowledge out there is the purpose of these videos. And I've seen you um, absolutely run roughshod over everyone in the Pulling at War tournament, which is hosted by Marine Corps University. And I know
Yeah.
there's going to be another year of outstanding tournaments coming up. I'm really looking forward to trying to stay in touch so that we can keep getting you on and get some opinions on how those different tournaments are going.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing the road to the Commandant Cup again, and just engaging more with the community, and get more people to the table, whether that be virtual or in person. Yeah.
All right, Matt. I really appreciate you taking the time all the way from Okinawa. Again, the Mar 4 Pack MIG, the championship winning team from this year's Commandant's Cup, and
Yeah.
we're already on the road to next year's. Thank you so much for the time, and have a good rest
Awesome.
of your day.
All right. Thanks, Kurt. Yep. Appreciate it.